The island of Shikoku had been put to siege by Uno Shigenobu's unbreakable fleet, trapping there a concentration of coalition forces and the two men now fighting to win the favour of their clan. Tsugutsura completed the conquest of Tosa, while Yoshishige saw mixed results in his attempts to march east into the heavily defended Miyoshi domain. Far away, mostly unaware of the conceit behind the Shikoku campaign, Yoshiaki's loyal generals fought on, pressuring the coalition as successfully as ever. The only thing that could stop them would be the potentially destabilizing effect that the news of Yoshiaki's death might have. Yoshishige was certain that he was the best fit for that power vacuum, and the only hope to complete the unification of Japan. Everyone calls you heartless, father. Some in awe, some in disgust. As it stands, I don't know what to think. If you really wanted to end the debate about your succession, why did you not simply enforce your will through might, as you always have? Your people are loyal to you, and they would be loyal to me if you didn't encourage the whispers among the samurai with your little game and my little brother. We're so close to finishing your dream. I can finish it. I will finish it despite your momentary lapse of judgment. It is your legacy that allows me to hold such power. With Nanban weapons, the love of the Lord, and with the rebels falling one by one, all I need to rule is the wisdom to pull everything together and make the holy Otomo shogunate as immortal as the earth. And if I ever lack for wisdom, I need only think what you would have done, what you would have told me when I was a boy about how the world works. I'll take what I need. I'll do what I need. In the end, I'll make sure that I've done what is right, no matter what the people think of me, just as you said. Welcome back to Barbarian Masters. We've got Yoshishige in the middle of a fight over a small hill where the enemy have attacked us from multiple sides, but we're easily choke pointing them and stopping them from getting up to the top. The hill itself, though, didn't prove to be that much of an advantage because the angles it provided for our gun units weren't good enough. Many of them couldn't really see anything, and because I was seeing this whole hill from above while playing, I didn't really notice how much their line of sight was blocked, so that's going to be a problem. Our hand mortars don't have that issue, and they're just demolishing groups of enemy Ashigaru. We're trying to push the enemy back here on our left in order to outflank the enemy. On the right, things didn't go very well. I was going to try and outflank the enemy with these cavalry, but they got stuck in melee with some enemy spear samurai. You can see they've got orders to run away, but they're just not doing it. And that means we're going to lose most of that unit pretty much instantly, and they're just going to have to run away for the rest of the battle. Things are going better over here, as I mentioned, with our cav not being bogged down and instead grinding through some enemy archers, absolutely annihilating them, and our infantry also defeated the nearby Katana Ashigaru so they can move up to help. In the centre, we've got most of the enemy's army tanked onto a couple of units of Naginata samurai, but the battle's taking too long and they are gradually being defeated by that overwhelming pressure. Our mortars shooting into the melee probably isn't helping, and definitely not helping are my gunners, who I still haven't noticed aren't shooting the enemy there. Very bad show from me. Still, the enemy's morale is eventually going to be diminished, and the replay actually crashed at that point, but here's the ending from the live footage. It just ended because we won. The enemy left. We didn't manage to actually outflank them at all in the end, never got to that point. But still, we lost most of our tanking force while that fight was going on, even if the enemy eventually gave up just before they were going to break through. A full unit of Naginata samurai lost there, unfortunately, and some decent losses across the rest of the army. Now, if you were looking very closely there, you would have seen there were like 3 frames where there was another Miyoshi army actually standing next to the one we just defeated. When I was playing, I don't remember if I actually noticed it. Probably not, because I'm usually doing something else at the same time as playing. And I walked right forwards into those armies, and in fact there were 2 right there, and we are ambushed. We are now being ambushed by 5,000 or so troops. We've got less than 1,000 on our side. That balance bar doesn't look very good. It seems that Yoshishige is in huge trouble here. The map was right next to the one we just fought on, so that little hill with all the cliffs is still there. I'm going to start off by running most of the army up that cliff to try and get a nice choke point to funnel the enemy into, but the enemy are very close by as the battle starts, so there's no guarantee we can actually get up there before the fighting starts. My artillery, which has no hope of getting up there, is just going to run away in the opposite direction to provide a distraction and perhaps draw some enemies away. As we went up the hill, the enemy very kindly stopped most of their units, so we did manage to get our army up there, but they only stopped because they have tons of archers and fire rocket troops which shoot into the back of our troops as they flee, causing enormous damage, as you can see. And the most critical thing they did here was they killed half of our Portuguese pikemen, who are our best melee unit by far, perhaps the best melee unit in the game. We were taken down from something like 40 to something like 20, and now they're going to have to hold off all of these units and stop them coming up the hill, because really we didn't have very much in the way of melee infantry to begin with. Now I've got even less. It's just loads of range units up here on top of the hill, so they'll have to do their best to help, while very small pockets of our melee infantry just hold everything off. Here got some ninjas trying to stop some katana ashigaru getting up the hill. On the other side here I've got a few spearmen and some gunners who are working together to push back these katana ashigaru, and that was working pretty well. The enemy just routed really quickly because we annihilated them, and we'll charge down the hill trying to get some more kills there. Our static position on top of the hill is an ideal target for explosive attacks, and they're going to keep coming in until we can grind our way down the hill and get to those units. There are a few firebomb units in this melee, I think, so we've taken them out of action. Still, going to be very difficult for our handful of men, perhaps only 30 to 40 in total, hacking through a large portion of an entire enemy army there. At least we're fighting downhill, that's something. Our ninjas are doing okay holding this other approach, but they're not really meant for prolonged melees, so while they're killing lots of enemies, they're being killed themselves. Really, it's our ranged units that are doing most of the damage up here. We're constantly sniping away at the edges of the melee and thinning out the enemy groups, and that's also demoralizing the enemy as well, so lots of them starting to rout. We've got our own hand mortars who can support our attack though with some danger close fire, and as you can see over here, our plan to draw some of the enemy away has been successful, but now those units are going to have to be sacrificed. So all our pieces are in place. There's not much we can do from here. We just have to see what happens.
Gone? What do you mean, gone? The explosions spooked them away, my lord. Every horse has bolted. So I'm trapped here? We all are, my lord. I'm so sorry. You will be. Go join the fighting on the hillside now. Yes, my lord. I will redeem myself. Please do not think too little of me, my lord. You shouldn't care what I think, but what God thinks. Get out of here. Damn these rebel maggots breeding in the wounds they have carved into our nation. I won't die here. I can't die here. How could this be allowed? Dear Father, who art in heaven, hear the voices of your followers this day, I beg you. See the blood we spilled to teach Japan your truths. Darkness is strong here. We need something more. We need your aid, Father. We need a miracle, Father. Father! Can anyone hear me? Look, your men from Europe, they're at risk too. Do it for all of us, Father. What am I meant to do, Father? Please, please. This is the end, is it? Is that what you want? Not so quickly. To the death! Fight to the death, all loyal soldiers of Japan! This whole hill shall be our tomb! Kill without question! Bring 1,000 heads to the gates of heaven so that God himself will know your worth! In the name of the Holy Spirit, in the name of the Otomo clan, of Japan, of Yoshiaki, let me see you die well!
A lot of the first army that was attacking us was somehow routed under what pressure we were able to put on them, but there's still 1.5-ish other armies to fight, this time coming from the other direction. We really only have gun units to defend against this attack, so they're going to have to do their best. Turcos, though, despite being a ranged unit, do have very high melee stats and high armor, so they're still okay to use to tank these samurai attacks, and it's even probably fair to say they're better than samurai in melee due to their veterancy boosting their stats so much. Plus, we do have Yoshishige on stand and fight mode, which also boosts stats and morale, meaning our line, while it's very shaky and thin looking, is much more powerful than you might first think. Ashigaru units have no chance at all, they just get torn apart when they attempt to break through our gun line, and off they go, leaving the heavier troops, the samurai, to grind away, and we should be able to win. We have roughly equal numbers and our troops are better, and indeed we start to see enemies routing in this situation. Loads more on the way in though, so that doesn't really mean much. We'll now hack our way through wave after wave of Ashigaru. Easier to kill, but there's quite a lot of them and they are going to be gradually damaging us. There were plenty more ranged units also to think about, so I ended up charging forwards, trying to push deep into the enemy's position with a couple of units in order to lock those ranged units down in melee. Then the gunners who I left behind would be able to snipe some of them down. On our right, our Portuguese troops are just rampaging through enemy Ashigaru units, and our pikemen, of course, doing as well as ever. They have over 500 kills by this point in the battle and have lost perhaps 4 men in the melee fighting. The rest of it was down to just the ranged attacks, so they are extremely powerful, especially with their veterancy. And indeed, our push forward to get rid of the enemy's ranged units actually worked somehow. I didn't expect it to work. We came away with only a couple of survivors from the units that did it, but they can run back and draw the remaining enemy troops into our gunfire, which will demoralize them. Now that they're going to have to run over corpses all the way and get killed themselves, they decide actually we're not going to bother with this, despite there being really very little in front of them there. Another attack came in from the original direction, some more Katana Ashigaru, and I don't have much to stop them, but our gun units, by doing a little phased withdrawal thing here, are able to get quite a few shots off onto these guys, bringing them down to wavering morale, and once they run in to fight with the Turcos, while they did do a bit of damage, they immediately rout, since they're so disadvantaged in that melee, and that's going to be the end of them. Now these units can jump back to fight on the other side again, because more enemies are on the way. There was a bit of a break while the enemy regrouped and brought more reinforcements in, but among those reinforcements was a unit of hand mortars, and that's devastating because they can just sit absolutely miles away and smash our static position. All we can do is try not to get hit by it. They definitely got hit by that first one, but the Turcos with their heavy armor can tank even deadly explosive shots like that somehow. And so most of them get back up and rejoin the line, ready to potentially just get hit all over again. On the other side, some more Katana Ashigaru trying to sneak up and repeat the attack back here. I've got just a few archers trying to hold them off for now. I moved my line forwards a tiny bit in order to dodge the next mortar volley, since once you see them fire, if you just take a few paces away, they'll then miss. But we can't keep doing that because we need to get firing. The enemy's melee infantry are charging and we need to kill as many of them as possible before they arrive, since we're so low on numbers. That means the next volley does indeed get a pretty nice hit, but again our armor protects many of our soldiers. They get back up and go right into the fighting. On the other side near Yoshishige, our pikemen have had to stop these Katana Ashigaru because our bow samurai weren't going to be enough. Even though they are okay in melee, they're not particularly good, and they had so few men they were on the verge of routing. Now another wave of enemies comes in, and once again just a case of seeing if our men can kill enough of them to get them to go away. The issue we have is that we've taken so many casualties, we're starting to have the army losses morale debuff, so many of our elite units are considering routing. Yoshishige takes the next mortar volley and some fire arrows there. It looked like he got killed, but actually he was playing dead on the edge there. I think he got thrown by an explosion, but he's back into the fight and back onto his magic chair. He's just sitting and waiting for his fate. I was able to take a bit of pressure off him and off the rest of our army by sending our hand mortars, now out of ammo, to go behind enemy lines, and tank explosives, tank arrows just generally die in place of more valuable soldiers, but that's not going to do any good for our army losses morale debuff. And you can see everything is starting to waver now. Even these units which normally fight to the last man in an ordinary situation with the army losses debuff, they will consider routing, even though the enemy have taken far more casualties and they're perhaps down to their last 5% of their army. Things were almost going well, you could say, but our army losses are going to end it for us at this stage. Yoshishige is attacked by some katana ashigaru. He's only got 2 guards left alive and the rest of his men are now all retreating. He decides to join them in routing, but he's routing while surrounded by the enemy, so still not an ideal scenario. More explosives land all over the place. He somehow jukes them and gets away, and the battle ends there. It's a costly enemy victory. Did lots of damage to the enemy. A lot of the damage was just morale, so they still have lots of troops left alive. They just almost lost the battle. Still thousands of enemies were killed, and Yoshishige is technically alive because of how the battle auto-resolves things at the end. He and some gun crew who escaped at the beginning actually walk away from that with their life, which I did not expect there, so that's pretty nice. But he's not out of the fire because he has no movement points, and soon it will be the Miyoshi turn, and if they send pretty much anything after us, he is almost certainly going to be killed there. Before we find out whether that actually happens, the Takeda annoyingly give us this delay. They're attacking through the route through Kaga and Echizen, the one that I hadn't really defended. They finally found out about this. I've got a few Ashigaru and a big garrison though, so we can still put up some decent resistance, and we have the castle to help. It's really just annoying that this is preventing us from seeing what the Miyoshi do next.
My lord, I have news from Echizen. The Takeda have arrived with an army, led by Baba Kagetada. You should have gone to Kyoto with this news. We are too far to deal with that here. I tried, my lord, but the clan retainers there have gone with the Lord Shogun to Shikoku. There was no one I could relay the message to. If there was no one at Kyoto, you should have gone to Shikoku or to Bungo. Sailing to Shikoku is forbidden on the Shogun's orders, my lord. Forbidden? Does he suspect enemy spies? Hardly a concern given the military situation. Well then, ride now to Bungo and tell Lord Korishige or Sukisada. We will have to let this be their decision. My lord, I thought it better to come to you. It's what most people would prefer, I think. How so? You can protect us. Everyone in Kyoto said that only you would know how to keep the capital safe. I'm flattered, but I have orders to fulfill here. I'll arrange for more troops to be sent. That's all I can do without Lord Yoshiaki's permission. Let's hope his stunts end in success quickly.
We're using the standard defensive strategy, delaying the enemy with a couple of units while our archers inflict the damage. The enemy had enough archers on their side to stop me from doing this if they wanted to, but they didn't. And there we even get a Yari hero, drawing him into melee afterwards as well, the rest of his unit I should say. So that's all good, that'll avoid a lot of casualties. The enemy were better on the other side of the castle, but eventually they went in for it as well, throwing all of their Yari Ashigaru into melee with our men up on the walls, and we're fighting to the death here, so we're just going to win pretty much no matter what happens. On the other side, the enemy's attack was more successful in that their melee infantry were more numerous and higher in quality, so they did kill our first couple of melee units and they could now climb up the wall to try and engage my archers, but they just didn't want to. Once they actually got to the wall, all their units just turned around and there was a chain rout, so that was the end of that. Expected a bit more fight, but they're not going to bother, which is the right decision because I think they would have ultimately failed there. So after a few stubborn units decided to try and come back in later on, but didn't do anything, the battle ends. It's a decisive victory. So the Takeda sneak attack has now been thwarted. We lost a couple of units, but they are very easily replaced. So that's that. Now we can finally get to the Miyoshi turn and see what they have in store for us. First, it's the monks at it again. They're really determined to demoralize our armies by just shouting us down with their religious lectures. They do that twice to our cannon crew. I thought that was the prelude to an attack, but actually that's the end of their turn. Their nearby forces didn't come after us, so that means we're going to be able to escape. We also have a new son coming of age. This is one of the sons of Yoshishige, and I thought I'd take this opportunity to actually show you what the family tree looks like at the moment. We've got 2 active sons of Yoshishige who are both very young and haven't done anything, they're just sitting in bungo at the moment. And he does have another son who may join as a general later on, and a daughter who we can use for a political marriage if we wish. Anyway, Yoshishige himself will now make a run for it. He teams up with the cannon crew and can make it back to the castle at East Tosa. So now he's safe, we've got a big garrison here, we'll get lots of replenishment, and we can even recruit new units to start giving him a new army, which he will eventually need, but that will take a while. We're going to finish off that Takeda force using the small army we had at Echizen. It could only just about do it, but losses here are irrelevant since we'll just get them all back in a moment, so that was the end of that. Then an interesting battle occurred on the front where Kurokawa was advancing. I was moving up after having won a couple of battles to go take a castle, but there was a hidden force and Kurokawa gets ambushed, so we're actually facing a very similar battle to what Yoshishige just faced earlier on. No choice but to fight it, so we'll give it a go, and the enemy have lots of mortars and fire rockets again, so it's going to be the same problem with trying to stand still in this battle. Didn't have any good terrain, so we just had to fold out into 2 directions and try to stop the enemy advance. We managed to dodge the first volley of the mortars by stopping our advance just before it hits us, because they were firing at us while we were moving, so they tried to lead us a little bit there. One nice factor to this ambush is that the troops coming from the south are mostly ranged units, and the special ranged units at that, who are all extremely weak against melee attacks. So all we need to do is charge forwards with a few katana samurai, and we can make some good progress here, and Kurokawa himself will be joining in as well. So we lock down some archers and some ashigaru into melee, then some more men get through to take out their cannons, and their mortars and rockets over there are soon going to face the same fate. On the other side, things are much more dangerous. We've just got 2 units of long yari ashigaru trying to hold off everything at once while we form up archers behind them to provide some support. Now that they're ready, they're actually going to be very effective because we have so many of them and because the enemy are quite close. We've already won over here. The ashigaru are just wiped aside by our samurai, and the special units stand no chance at all. So everything's clear there. Then back on the more dangerous side, things get cleared up very quickly as well, because our archers were just so effective. Their daimyo, their newest daimyo, charges in to fight with our anti-cav unit, so he's just going to be wiped out there, thank you very much. And all their reinforcements didn't rush into the battle, they stopped to form up, and that bought us plenty of time to do the same ourselves. There's their daimyo running for it. He survived, but his troops will still be demoralized by seeing him fleeing from battle, and we can now rush to the other side of the map where there's a really nice defensive position and set up there ready to resist the next stack and a half. So things are looking much, much better than they were when Yoshishige faced this situation. Our archers are ready to cut the enemy down as they advance towards our cliffs, but they do still have their mortars and fire rocket units that we need to worry about, and that's going to require a bit of courage from our cavalry to deal with. We're rushing Kurokawa and some horse archers over there to try and protect our men.
This was your plan, rebels. Were we meant to die here? You're all as hopeless as those we slaughtered last moon, and the moon before that, and the moon before that. The brave and brilliant men of your realm know to flee from the clan's grasp, or have already pledged to serve Shogun Yoshiaki. How will you crush our spirit now? We are invincible. We cannot be slowed, cannot be halted, cannot be moved, cannot be killed. And with the likes of you, we shall not negotiate. Soon, my loyal brothers, we will end the madness and give our descendants not just a new and prosperous world, but a tale to aspire to. The tale of how we men of honor did our duty down to the very last sword stroke. This is when life is at its finest, in service to the will of the people. God bless the Otomo!
Avoiding the fate of the late Terada, Kurokawa just tanks the rocket shots and leads them away so they can't take part in this fight, where all of the enemy's infantry are forming up behind each other as they try to round the edge of this cliff, so most of them aren't taking part in the fight, meaning our small number of melee units won't be outflanked or overwhelmed too badly. Beside them, our archers will shoot down at the enemy's archers, who were firing back at us and inflicting a bit of damage, but we've got many more archers than they, so we'll win that little fight. Then our archers will start raining arrows into the melee blob as well. And Kurokawa has been successful, along with the horse archers, in just drawing all of those special units towards the edge of the map now, so no worries about being bombarded. In this fight, things went better than expected. You can see enemy units are routing with loads of strength left, even samurai routing before Ashigaru. Don't really know what's going on here, but the enemy morale seems to be very low, perhaps because they're not particularly veteran, since your level in many ways determines a unit's morale because it buffs it so much it can make you immune to certain morale shocks. But anyway, so they all ran away, and that was the end of that. We ended up not killing that much of the enemy army because so much of it retreated, but that doesn't matter. We've survived their ambush. That pushes much of their army away, meaning we can now go ahead with our original plan of attacking the castle. So that's going to work out quite well, and we're even fighting the enemy daimyo again, so we'll get a chance to kill him, meaning the Takeda are just losing daimyos left, right and center. Probably not very good for their propaganda. With all our stacks together there, no problem to take the castle. We'll move on in, and that's our front line moved up to an equally defensible position. So we've still got a nice choke point and a high level castle to defend. Just need to burn down the legendary Buddhist temple there. Now Tsugutsura needs to make an attack here because the enemy weren't sallying out as I hoped, so we're going to have to do a siege assault. This is a siege assault that's quite easy, but it's also very long and technical, so I'm not really going to focus on it. First, we use the cannons to kill as many archers as we can by blowing up pieces of the wall. By having our army all attack from one direction, all of their archers focus right in front of us, so we can maximize the damage through that. Then we just fire cannons at random to do damage to other units, while my one unit of archers can kill other Ashigaru over time to make our attack a bit easier. Then it's time to make the attack, and because the enemy is so concentrated in this outer part of the castle, I decided to go for the capture point rather than killing enemies. First, I'm going to move a unit up that tall climb to block the gateway back to the inner part of the castle, while some other units climb up right next to the Tenshu to go for the capture point and also block access to it. Most of the enemy army was blocked from getting to the capture point, and as a result we are going to be able to take it. Meanwhile, my cavalry just rushed inside to kill enemy archers and generally be a distraction down here, so we did kill a lot of the enemy army just because we could. Nice to get some experience, and we're unlikely to take many casualties there. That's the end of that then, a nice easy victory for us. Not having to fight everything means we'll take fewer casualties because they'll just be deleted now, and we'll get the castle, so the casualties we did take will be somewhat replenished. There's the eventual result, no units lost, that's all we really care about. With that, Tsugutsura has now taken 2 castles on Shikoku and defeated a couple of armies, while Yoshishige has only defeated an army or 2 while losing his own and capturing no territory. So overall, Tsugutsura is the clear leader in the test of might that this island represents. Maybe Yoshishige can make a comeback in the next part, we'll have to see. He's got some work to do for sure. Yoshishige's defeat destroyed the majority of the foreign troops in Japan, along with much of his reputation as a general. This made the background miscontent around the use of Nanban men and weapons become more audible. It also gave more power to Tsugutsura, who was for the moment the most powerful clan representative as far as the military was concerned. Second to him was Kobayakawa, the veteran retainer of the late shogun, who was the most experienced man the clan had by far. But he was out of reach for the operation on Shikoku, and no effort was made to change that. Indeed, Yoshiaki's orders to Uno had been clear. The campaign did not have to be successful to provide the answers the clan needed. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making all this possible. Yoshishige will get a bit of a chance for revenge, but he'll need much more than that to really make a recovery in the next part of Barbarian Masters.